99.9% of all the problems that we have in Cameroon, and even the frictions, corruption, nepotism, tribalism, etc., and the fight that the elites have amongst themselves is because all power is concentrated in one person. We need to reduce the size of government, the bureaucratic size of government, to have an efficient government that is at the service of people. And we can do that. Essentially, we need to be able to, first of all, pay decent salaries to our civil service to make sure that they don't need to compete or they don't need to fight with the private sector to survive. That's why I'm fighting against the system. I'm not fighting only to replace Mr. Biya. I'm fighting to replace the system. It's not the same thing. So, hello everyone. Today on Osih for the People, I'm pleased to receive Maimo. He just described himself as a typical Bamenda boy. And Maimo is a young influencer on the web, and he does many other things. And I think this podcast will help us to know him a bit better. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Like you rightly said, my name is Maimo Brandon. I'm an entrepreneur, farmer, forex trader, and a Pan-African, I would say.
Okay, but Pan-African is not a job. It's a value.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I got into activism because of everything we're seeing, and I feel like I should contribute to that change we seek. I should not just sit behind and complain and point fingers at people. So I decided to start with the man in the mirror and ask myself, what am I doing? So here I am today.
Okay, great. So I hope you are registered to vote.
Of course,
that's
since
great.
2024.
Yeah. Okay.
And I must say I'm truly honored to be here. I remember when you were first announced back in the days that you were replacing the chairman. We were so excited. We've been following your journey. So to speak with you today is truly an honor for me. And I want to appreciate all that you do, your humility, your person, and your efforts. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
So my journey has been a very amazing one, filled with struggles and triumphs, and truly to be with you today, it's just a testimony of how far I've come from being a shanty boy in Bamenda, a typical Bamenda boy at Chombo, being alone at the age of 17, trying to navigate my way through life right up to this point. Okay. It's really a testament. So I believe that opportunities are there for all. It just depends on you to grab. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm into agriculture.
What do you do in agriculture?
Now I'm trying to transform sorghum into fuel.
Okay, that's quite something. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So we got about 50 hectares in Kuseri to do sorghum. But for the moment, I'm looking at bee farming in Penja because the amount of investment required for that sorghum is not going to be funny.
Yeah.
So it's something for a long run. But for now, I'm doing honey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does it work? I don't see you with bee stings. Or you send other people to go and hive.
So my grandfather was one of the founding members of Noweba and Honko. So we had beehives in our house in Bamenda.
So you're used to them.
Yeah. And we're very passionate about plants. We had all types of herbs. So I was very passionate. So growing up, and I came to Douala, I was looking to invest in real estate. But I realized that getting places in the urban areas were more than me. So I started buying in rural areas. So when I went to Penja, I found these huge trees. I realized that if I could buy a place for 500,000 per hectare with trees, I could use those trees to build bungalows for workers, build beehives, and just keep them. And it makes money while I'm figuring out what to do with that place. Okay. So that's what got me into bee farming.
Okay, that's great.
And then I trade forex as well. I'm into immigration. I help people pursue further studies abroad, work abroad, but now I focus on studies abroad. And I trade the forex markets as well.
Okay, so you're doing lots of things between Douala, Bamenda, Kuseri, Penja, agriculture, transformation, production, services. You're in all fields. So where do you find the time?
We all have 24 hours. It just depends on how you choose to use yours.
Okay, that's your point as well. So that's good.
Yeah.
So
use mine
you were saying what you're talking about your grandfather, and it struck me. With all that is going on in the Northwest today, do you still go back to where you grew up with all those plants? It's of interest for me, not on the crisis part of it, but more to understand better, because I'm passionate about having a biological bank of and knowledge there too of our plants. Because what I discovered is that with biodiversity decline, many of those plants disappear with time. And so the plants that our grandparents grew up with, we're not sure that we'll be able to transmit them to our grandchildren. So I'm a bit passionate about that part because I'm trying to do it in my village. So I just wanted to understand how it is, because you told me that you grew up with lots of plants around you.
That's a very interesting viewpoint, because I never thought about it that way, about diversity. I saw it more like urbanization.
Okay.
Because we had all types of herbs you could imagine.
It's very important to keep them.
We had like an orchard, but now, after he died, the children started constructing. Most of those plants disappeared. Most of the trees disappeared. The beehives as well. Everything basically.
But you and maybe your brothers and sisters, or I don't know, those who were around your grandfather, should try to see whether, because you have that knowledge. Because the point is that most of those things disappear because the knowledge goes away, And so with that knowledge, you need to work towards putting back an orchard.
I think I'm the only one that really picked up that passion for plants, because
then you need to do it.
Right now, even in my office, I have plants at the balcony. I try to always plant stuff.
Okay.
So I really have this passion for plants and nature in general.
Do it.
Yeah,
do it.
Definitely. I definitely will do it.
Because
but that's an interesting angle to look at it from.
Well, that's what you call a botanical garden. So right now we have just one that dates back to the German times. So it would be, if we had multiple botanical farms from Kruseri right down to Yokaduma, we would have some sort of a guarantee that part of our biodiversity will move from generation to generation.
That's true. We even had apple trees.
You see?
We're the only ones, I think, basically.
Okay, that's great.
To have apple trees.
Okay, so you grew up eating apples?
Yeah, in our house, just plugging it in front.
Okay.
So, So what about you? I heard you're very interested and passionate about business as well. You're an entrepreneur since from 2000. How has it been?
Well, it's long before 2000, but it's been a road with ups and downs, and it's something I'm passionate about, as you said. So you see it, although it's ups and downs, you see it flat, because it doesn't bother you when you fail, because for you to be an entrepreneur, you need to be able to fail, stand up again, and move on. So it's been good. It's been good so far. It could have been much better if the environment were better than what we have in Cameroon, because the business environment in Cameroon is just not up to it. I mean, as I usually say, if you've done business in Cameroon for 2 years, they should issue you an MBA, because it is just nearly impossible to survive all the odds. I mean, we have an administration that is anti-business. We have a taxation system that is built for multinationals but applied to micro companies. It's just everything going upside down. So when you succeed in Cameroon, you can succeed anywhere.
Certainly,
yes.
I think so too. But now, let's just say you had the power to change 2 things for entrepreneurs in Cameroon. What would that be?
2 things.
Yes.
Well,
I don't mind.
Well, the first thing is the business environment. It's extremely important to work on that. Today, we unfortunately have an administration or a government, to make it simple, where civil servants are actually competitors to the private sector. So you need to separate that. You cannot be in the civil service and compete with the private sector. You cannot be in the civil service and work on even procurement, that is contracts. Government contracts are being given out to companies owned by civil servants. So it makes everything just nearly impossible. And I think you need to put in place a business environment where we have to understand that the private sector fuels the economy. Because today, it is essentially the administration that fuels the economy, and we need to move away from that. You will see that government procurement and government investment represents plus minus 12% of the GDP, which is much too much. I'm not saying that what they're doing is too much, but I'm saying that the share of the GDP is too much. So we need to change that. We need to work on that. And for that to happen, we need to reduce the size of government, the bureaucratic size of government, to have an efficient government that is at the service of people. And we can do that. We don't need to invest much in that. Actually, it will save us a lot of money if we go that route. And we need to have a civil service. And probably because we are in a francophone dispensation where that word civil service is not understood because they call them fonctionnaires, they don't understand that they are at the service of the people. So we need to have an administration that ushers in the private sector, that is, works with the young people who want to put in place companies. It's not essentially about giving money per se, but putting an environment in place such that money can be raised, that people can do business, and they don't spend their time firefighting. Right now, I spend 60 to 70% of my time, and it's the case for every entrepreneur in Cameroon, firefighting. That is, you spend too much time on taxation issues, you spend too much time on regulations, on administrative issues, you spend enormous time on things that have nothing to do with your business, just to allow you exist. And most businesses confront about 30 different departments or services, basically on a monthly basis, which is just something impossible. So we need to help and nurture the private sector to prevail. And that can only be done if we change our paradigm in the way government is working today. They need to move from this functionary mindset to the civil service mindset. They need to understand that they are at the service of the private sector. Secondly, we need to be able, the second thing is my plea for Made in Cameroon. I've been carrying that plea. I brought it to Parliament. It is today part of our finance bill, and I'm very proud of it. I've been accompanying young people in the Made in Cameroon sector, and basically that's about local content. We need to put much more local content in everything we do in Cameroon. It is uncalled for that imported rice is less expensive than domestic rice produced in Cameroon. It is uncalled for that beer or drinks produced by local companies giving thousands and thousands of jobs to Cameroonians have to compete with imported beers. So each time we buy an imported beer, we are actually killing a job in Cameroon. And we need to understand that. And the government needs to take very stringent measures for that not to be the case. Because your imported beer should be a luxury choice, not an economic necessity or juice or whatsoever, because I've said beer twice. And so we need to push that Made in Cameroon narrative. We need to have a local content law whereby Only when a Cameroonian content is not available can government move on to an African content, and only when an African content is not available can government move over to a world content. It is uncalled for that Cameroonian companies need to bid on par with French companies or Lebanese companies or others. It shouldn't happen.
So what's the easiest way to do that? Taxes, tariffs, or what's the easiest way to do that? In a democratic
a local content law is transversal. You have tariffs, you have taxes, you have everything comes into it. But the first point in a local content law is that you have stringent measures that cannot be transgressed. For instance, we shouldn't be able to buy imported furniture when we are wood producing country. So you see, Article 1, 2 or 3 of such a law would say that the government is not allowed to purchase furniture made with imported wood, period. And every furniture bought by government should have at least 80% Cameroonian content. Finished. That's it. That's how it works. You don't need to put any tariffs on that. It simply is such that you force the government, who is today the biggest procurement agency in Cameroon because they buy most of what is available in this country, you force them to put local content into their offices. You force them to work. It should not be possible for buildings to be built in Cameroon with imported cement, whereas we have 6 or 7 cement factories today. But it still happens. It shouldn't be possible. All those things are part of those local content laws, and how do you do that? For some instances, you simply ban, and in other instances, you raise tariffs and taxes and so on to make them much more expensive than what is produced locally. Because if you do not protect the local market, the local production, the made in Cameroon, you simply are financing jobs abroad. As I usually say, each foreign beer you drink is paying a contribution to a salary abroad and not in Cameroon.
And getting a job here.
Pardon?
And getting a job here.
Yes.
Now, we've said a lot of things. Let me try to recap.
Those are 2 things. And the third thing is working on education. Okay. Cameroonians need to understand that if they have the choice between 2 rices, 2 rice packets, that's why I say rices, you have a Cameroonian and you have Chinese. A foreign, whatever, I don't call names. When you buy that Cameroonian rice, you are empowering a production family, you are empowering workers transforming it, you are empowering workers packaging it, etc., etc. You are creating an industry. And as long as we do not support the local production, that local production can never get to a critical size whereby we can start exporting. Because even the Chinese rice started that way. The Chinese, first of all, had to eat their rice to make sure that the economy goes round and they can start exporting it. So those are the things we have to understand. And it goes even further in education. You have to understand that each time you're having a breakfast with bread, you're actually paying for a job abroad and killing one in Cameroon. And when your grandparent you talked so fondly of just a minute ago was still alive, I guess in his childhood, his breakfast was something completely different. Yeah. So why don't we move towards that? Then now you can start talking about other elements you put in. Elements like the time we go to work and we come back. Because if you look at our business time today, it's copied from the Western world, and that obliges us to have Western habits. Because you agree with me that you cannot eat turning cocoyam at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at work at 7:30. So you need to work that around. And all those things, countries that really mean business, getting forward, they think about all of those things. They go ahead and make sure that all of those things are put in place to enable maximum local content. And it goes even to culture. It goes to culture. It is uncalled for that you have foreign artists consuming plus minus 90 to 95% of the cash prices for concerts in Cameroon. And yet Cameroon has thousands and thousands of artists who together share the 5% that is left. And those things need to change. But you change them with law, and you change them with people who are in power, who have a will to make those changes. So go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So you spoke about export, and there's this experience I had. I bought something overseas from China specifically for 25,000 francs. And when it got to Cameroon, I was asked to pay about 100,000 francs for taxes. And it was so strange because I was looking at buying this thing and reselling. So only the tax and everything took me to over 100,000 francs, which wasn't a feasible price. The business idea died. So I just wanted to talk on that about the taxes. And you made mention of something about government and competing with the private sector. Please, can you take that again? You said something about government officials competing with the private sector.
No, the point is that in most instances, when you need the regulator, that is the government, to regulate what you're trying to do, they will actually be talking to you as if they are in business themselves. And they will start by asking you a business plan. But the business plan is not a public document. That's a strategic document owned by a company. Company can share with investors, can share with his banks and so on, but it's not something you go and deposit at government. Yeah, so there is absolutely no point for government to ask for your business plan, but they do so. And when you deposit your business plan with them, somebody in government simply copies your plan and then does everything you want to do. By the time you understand what is going on, he has created a competition that has already gone above where you want it to be. So essentially, we need to be able to, first of all, pay decent salaries to our civil service to make sure that they don't need to compete or they don't need to fight with the private sector to survive. That's one point, very essential point we have to look at. And secondly, we need to put in place regulations making it such that the government sector, first of all, and the civil servants stay out of the private sector. If you want to go into business, you resign from your civil service job and you go into business. But the point is that even the government is competing with the private sector. It makes no point today. I mean, it's untold for in the whole world that the government owns hotels. The government can have an investment fund that invests in hotels and so on. But today, the government actually manages hotels, with the Ministry of Tourism managing on a day-to-day basis hotels. You know them all, Hotel Sawa, Mountain Hotel, and so on and so forth. So it is actually uncalled for, because you have a government using the tax paid by a hotel in this city of Douala. They take the tax to subsidize their hotel that competes with the one paying tax. So you understand the intricacies in it.
So I had one of my comrades online ask that they submitted, he's been insisting that I asked you this, that they met in parliament, they asked for their business plan about recycling 6-7 years ago. And then you asked for his number, you connected with him, that you're going to call him. He had a beautiful idea, but you did not call. That he's interested to know why. It just came to my mind when you spoke of the...
Well, there are some cases that just slip off. We are human, and the good thing is that he said, I reached out to him. So, you have to understand that we receive thousands and thousands of requests on a daily basis. And so it makes our efficiency extremely low. And we try to address the most urgent, the most important, and the most compassionate of those requests, but we cannot do everything. And in a normal republic, a member of parliament has a whole office for him. Here we would not have that. We don't have parliamentary assistance and all those things. So we have to do them on our own and maybe use some of our private resources to get there. So it makes it very complicated. But I just want to say one thing, is that we have a duty to understand what parliament is. We have a duty to understand who does what. Because 90% of the requests that I receive have nothing to do with parliament. Parliamentarian controls government action and legiferates, does laws. A parliamentarian is not a mayor. A parliamentarian is not an insurance. A parliamentarian, yes, you can intervene in social cases and so on and so forth as a human. But in places where the parliamentarian is supposed to be used, they barely use them. And I beg for people to use my good offices. I tell them, I'm available for you. Use my good offices wherever you believe that I can come in. But I deal with laws and the control of government action. For instance, when school resumes, I go around schools telling parents that if you have any complications getting your kids into school, this is where my job is. Call me up. Tell me this principal doesn't want to take up my child for this and this reason. And I'll come there immediately because that is my job as an MP. Tell me they had to build a road here. They haven't built it because of this reason. I jump out to that place and I look. That is the role of an MP. An MP is, as a matter of fact, there to defend the interests of the people. We are not for local development. We are not those, the local development is being done by mayors. So we are not in place to build boreholes and gutters and fix roads and build classrooms. And that is not our role. That's the role of mayors. As a matter of fact, if I am a mayor and an MP comes into my municipality and does those things, I'll have an issue with him because he's trespassing. So, but very often where we can intervene in very important cases, we are not being called up. So that is a problem. So 90% of what comes to us actually either comes late or it's not part of our competence as MPs. Now, what is very important as well is that as an MP, whenever I have a law building up, I do my best to inform those in my constituency. I'm not talking about individuals, but groupings concerned by that law. And I give them a copy of the bill. I say, go through it, tell me what should be changed. But when we do that, when we receive the bill, very often we have just about 3-4 days. So even when you give a copy to those most concerned, by the time they come back to you, your parliamentary debate is already over. So you're already adopting the bill. But you need to put in amendments before the debate starts in committee. So it is important that we get feedback from our people so that we can fit in those amendments before that time. And very often we have 48 hours or 72 hours. And unfortunately, they're doing it purposely so that the amendments are as little as possible. But when you send out a copy of the bill to those concerned, by the time they realize the changes that will occur or the impact the bill will have on them, it's already too late.
All right, thank you. And when you spoke of the duties of the parliamentarian, I founded the foundation to give back to the public through our company. So we have a certain share of our profits that we give back through our foundation. And a lot of people have come up to us with such issues like this, not being able to send their child to school for 1 or 2 reasons, abuse and cases like that. So I myself, I wasn't even aware. I could be knocking on your door every day that we have this issue, we have that issue.
What the MP is there to do is to make sure that those cases don't happen. Okay. When an MP accompanies a social case, He can do it for his private interests, but then he's outside of his scope of competence. His competence is to make sure every child can go to school. So to take government to task. Because when government comes to parliament, to the National Assembly and asks for money, they tell us that they need to send each and every Cameroonian child to school. And for that to happen, they need 280 billion for the Ministry of Secondary Education. I just give an example. And we say, fine, take it. But then if I see that children cannot go to school for various reasons, I need to be aware of it and take it back. Because that's the control mechanism, and tell them, you are dilapidating the taxpayers' money. Because we gave you money for each and every child to go to school, and there are too many children who are unable to go to school. We cannot take a one-case scenario to build a new law, but at least when we have a feeling of what is going on, where problems are, I took up the case on national ID cards, okay? Because I went around the whole of Cameroon, and to my big astonishment, I must say, when I asked people, what is your biggest problem? In every locality was ID cards. And I came back, I said, we cannot let this happen. And that's why we did all that work. I'm not yet satisfied with where I am, but we continue beating on. Just last week again in Parliament, I was hitting the table on the issue until ID cards are available for each and every Cameroonian. And that's a very serious issue. And it goes right down to birth certificates. But if the lines are changing, it's because one, we were aware, and two, we hit on the table for that to happen.
So in a way, you're saying Parliament is effective in Cameroon?
I'm not saying it could be much more effective, but it's an instrument. You know, when you have a knife, you can cut onions, you can cut meat, or you can kill somebody with it. So it still remains a knife. It's Parliament. It's an instrument. There is absolutely nothing happening in Cameroon that doesn't go through government scrutiny. Now, does the scrutiny do it the right way or the wrong way? That's another question. But I am extremely powerful in Parliament, because in Parliament as an MP, and when you know what your rights are, you can have the balls running. So I very often call it the wall of lamentations, because you would say a lot of things that you would wish, but they don't happen. But the good thing is that you get to understand why those things don't happen, and you can propose. You can tell them, look, you guys are going the wrong way. Take this other path, and maybe you could solve a problem. For instance, I give you one example. The issue of ID cards. Now, ID cards, one of the big problems with the ID cards is the secret. You need to have a birth certificate to have an ID card. So you need to go to your council, your local council, to obtain your birth certificate, copy, extract, whatever. Then you move over to the magistrate to get a nationality certificate, with which you then take the two documents and you go to the police, where you get taken a picture, you pay money to the police while you pay fiscal stamps and so on, and then you get a receipt and you wait for your ID card. But guess what? The law that the same Parliament voted says that in case you are an adult without an ID card, the police must arrest you. So how can you go to those who are supposed to arrest you to tell them that you don't have an ID card and you want to make one? You understand? So those are the things that need to be corrected. And I go further. Why do you have to go from the mayor to the magistrate to the police? Because the magistrate issues his certificate on the basis of what the mayor gave you, and the police issues your ID card on the basis of what the mayor gave you. You understand? So why don't you do everything with the mayor and make it much more efficient and much more user-friendly? So those are the fights we have. And as long as we are not in power, we will continue fighting in Parliament for things to go that way. Okay. But without being in Parliament, it's just wishful thinking, because you cannot put it on the table of government.
I saw a member of Senate launch a borehole up north of about 1.2 billion. It shook me to the core. I was pissed for about a month. So I
don't you think that figure, one borehole at one
borehole?
Oh, I don't think the figure might be right. Huh?
1.2 billion.
No,
and it was celebrated and even launched.
I know of quite some borehole projects up there, but I don't think there is any one of that amount of money. But anyway, the senators and members of parliament have parliamentary intervention funds, which can be used for such issues. They can be used for any issue. They choose what they want to do with it. It's part of the grants they receive. One of the issues that you have to understand, Maimo, and I make this exceptionally clear, is that one of the problems in a dictatorship, we are in an autocracy in Cameroon, and in autocracies that tend towards dictatorship, one of the ways to weaken institutions, and you asked the question about whether you think parliament is efficient, and I told you all the instruments are there, it's just making them work, which is the issue. And one of the ways they make sure that it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work is that your elected officials, mayors, deputy mayors, members of parliament are underpaid. They are underpaid compared to their peers outside, just in the CEMAC region. In the CEMAC region, we are by far the lowest. So you see that even countries struggling, like Central African Republic, that has a budget that is lower than the budget of the city of Douala, they're paying their elected officials more than here. What happens? It makes it such that Maimo is not interested. It makes it such that most of our elected officials are actually either civil servants who are just going there for a one term and coming back because they want a title on their business card, or retired Cameroonians. So you see that the composition of our elective institutions doesn't reflect the nature of our country, doesn't reflect the sociology of our country. But guess what? If you could pay equivalent salaries or indemnities, because they're not salaries in the case of parliament, you would attract talent. You would start seeing people vying to become parliamentarians who can actually deliver.
What about the service part? You see, once you serve your nation, then why should it be just about the money that you pay? And then the
Maimo, you are not a mayor today, and of all what you told me, you didn't choose that cause because you want to make money, because you want to send your children to school, because you want to pay your rent, because you want to buy a car. Okay? So right now, what mayors are being paid, they cannot afford getting a car. So the state, is obliged to allow a council buy a car for the mayor. So the first money a council gets actually goes to the mayor's car. You understand? Instead of fixing roads and doing other things. So if that council is a poor council, you end up seeing that a big chunk of the money for that council is going to the mobility of one mayor, and the deputy mayors are still waiting for their own. So I'm just telling you that it makes no sense to have people who are serving who are poor. And I'm not saying that they are all poor. That's not what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong. No, it makes no sense having people who are at the service of others who are needy. Yeah. Because once they are needy, it opens the road for lack of service, absenteeism, because they have to do something else to send their kids to school, corruption, and you name it, lack of motivation, and so on and so forth. So it is extremely important that our elective officials, for us to attract the best of Cameroon, that we pay them normally. When I say normally, you have to understand that today, according to where you are, you can be earning 150,000 as a mayor. So tell me how you want somebody...
Please tell me that's not the real figure.
It's a real figure. The highest ranking mayors are around 500,000 francs. That is for cities like Douala and so on. So what happens then? The mayors will have to create disbursements around to be able to pay their electricity bills. Okay? They'll need to create things around that are unnecessary. They'll waste a lot of time trying to round that figure up. So, essentially, what I'm saying is that we need to understand that if the elected officials do not earn more than the appointed officials, the democracy has a problem.
Okay, now.
The checks and balances have a problem. When you have an MP who is supposed to control 7,500 billion, that's the state budget. That's his role, to control that. Rather goes to a minister to ask for fuel bonds because he has no fuel to get back to his constituency. You have a problem, Maimo.
No, definitely.
Okay, and that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they should be rich. I'm saying that we should make sure, we should do everything possible.
They can sustain themselves.
And how do you measure that? When you start seeing young Cameroonians, brilliant Cameroonians from the diaspora, from the private sector, okay? Leaving the private sector to be mayors, leaving good jobs to bring their project management capacities into parliament and councils and so on. That's where you'll see the councils come up. That's where you'll see parliament get stronger. And that's where you'll see our country grow. And for that to happen, you need to be able to attract them. And right now, it's not attractive.
No, I like that you're consistent with your mentality, because, I mean, the last time we spoke about this, you told me, Maimo, start with why.
It's not my mentality, it's my view.
Your view, yeah. Okay. So you told me, Maimo, start with why. You keep talking about the what and the how. Start with why. It's important. So it just brought me back to that moment.
Thank you.
But now, a lot of us, like until last year, I just believed that voting in Cameroon is a waste of time, although I had never voted. Okay, can I take you back to 92?
Yes.
I heard from Jukam Dominique that after the results were declared and it showed that they lost, they wanted to exercise their constitutional rights of peaceful protest. And
you're talking about two things again, and that's what Jukam Chamini did. No, nobody has ever been questioned for voting. It's very important. People don't get mixed up. There's never been a question asked anybody since 1990 on voting. Never.
Yes. But when we vote,
every voter has been secured.
Or if we feel like the votes are stolen, what do we do? 2018, something similar happened. That's what we do.
Let me take you through this. Okay. If you are a concerned citizen, and I hope you are, you must be registered to vote. You become a citizen when you get your voter's card or when you get registered to vote. Before that, you are just part of the population. Okay? Now, why are you a citizen? Because you are concerned about what happens in your city or country. When you vote, the law, people died for this, Maimo. Okay? The SDF fought for 30 years to come to where we are. We are not yet where we wanted to be. Okay? But we have gone a long way to help the one man, one vote principle exist. Okay? When you vote, nobody hurts you. Nobody asks you a question. Inside the polling stations, everything goes normally. Okay? Except if the polling office is not correctly manned. And that can happen everywhere. If you put 10 polling agents into a polling station and the 10 are corrupt, then you'll have corruption in there. But it has never been the case that that corruption goes around violence or even verbal violence. Never. I've never heard of that. Okay? And guess what? The polling agents in the polling stations are sent in by the political parties, ELECAM, and the administration. Okay? So if all the political parties send in polling agents, if you have 15 candidates, you're supposed to have 15 plus 3, 18 people in that polling station. And each person is controlling the other. Okay? At the end of the vote, the law says that vote counting is public. So it means that if you were 200 voting in a polling station, at the end of the vote, at least 100 of you should be standing there to vote. And the law goes further. The law says that the polling station chairperson appoints 2 scrutineers from within the population, not the people in the polling station. He needs to look out and say, show me your voter's card. Did you vote? Or your ink? Yes, I voted. Yes, I voted. Okay, 2 of you come in and start counting the ballots. So they are not even the ones counting. It's you, the voters, are counting the ballots. Okay? And once you finish, as you are counting them, they are marking it on a blackboard with chalk. And you have the results there instantaneously. You can take a picture, you can write it down, you can do what you want. Okay? And that's the result for your polling station. And that cannot change. Because at the end of that, you put down the results on your transcript and all of the polling agents sign. So if you were 18, there are 18 signatures there who have signed. And each one gets a copy of that PV, okay? And you take, if you are from the SDF, you take it to the SDF. Elecam takes it to the divisional, no, first to the divisional counting center, and then so on. It moves all right up to Yaoundé. Okay? So all those advancements came in place. So people should not take us back to 1992. In 1992, the polling roll, or if you want to call it the polling register, was made up of an exercise book handwritten by the DU. Okay? So we're no longer there. So people should not bring us back to confuse us. If Cameroonians come out, vote, secure their vote, that means make sure that their vote is counted. Okay? Change will
that's
follow.
pleasing to hear in a way. Because I mean,
that's the law.
If you're participating and you
that law was forced into place by the SDF since 2012.
Means you strongly believe that elections are not rigged in Cameroon, from what I understand.
Maimo, I am the MP for Vuri Center. Vuri Center is by far the richest constituency in Central Africa. Okay.
Central Africa.
All of what is produced, that is, Douala is 71% of the GDP of Cameroon. 71%. No, 71% of tax, sorry, and 65% of the GDP. So Douala is 65% of the GDP of Cameroon and 71% of tax. And nearly 80 to 85% of that is created in my constituency. Okay? And I am from the opposition. And I am able to win. In a place where you cannot give beer to your constituents because they request much more. Because they are all bank directors, they are all of that. I have the army in my constituency. I have the entire civil service of Douala in my constituency. I have the richest people in Cameroon in my constituency. But yet, as an opposition, I win. And I win because we man the polling stations and we control the voting till the end. That's where we win. Okay? So, if I can do it in Douala, then we can do it all over Cameroon.
Okay. So if one person can have 77%, then you see that the opposition is significantly lacking. So do you think it would be wise?
There are elements in the electoral code, as I said, many that need to be changed. And we work together with other political parties to make a proposal of how we can see an electoral code. We need a single ballot, a two-round election for presidential. All those issues are things that need to happen so that you don't come to those figures you are just saying. To cap financing as well is something that is necessary. Okay? When one candidate can spend 55 billion and the other candidates barely spend 100 million each, that's why you see those results.
Should they join their resources then?
Pardon?
Should they bring their resources together?
No. Let me put this in multiple forms. Mm-hmm. You go into an election because you believe in your country.
Okay.
Okay? And you have an ideology in which you believe. And you have a vision for your country. My vision for Cameroon is a federal dispensation. It's a semi-presidential form of the state. It is giving power to the people. Okay? What does that mean? 99.9% of all the problems that we have in Cameroon, and even the frictions, corruption, nepotism, tribalism, etc., and the fight that the elites have amongst themselves is because all power is concentrated in one person. And all these people are fighting for the favors of this one person. And it's the Constitution of Cameroon that gives all powers to one person, the president. And that needs to be broken down. And that's why I'm fighting against the system. I'm not fighting only to replace Mr. Biya. I'm fighting to replace the system. It's not the same thing. Okay. And when we want to give power to the people and we want a federal dispensation, we're not talking about geography. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about money. Okay? Where does the money go to? And that is what real federalism is. The money goes to the base. The competencies go to the base. Power to the people. That's what we want. We want to remove the power from a 2D and give it back to the people. And our idea is that the closest way to do that is to empower the councils. Because the councils are there they are the closest entity to the people. So what is happening today? Let me take the case of education.
Please, let me cut you. You say I was smiling. I just remember back in the days we used to sing SDF, power to the people, equal opportunities. But what happened to that? We're not hearing it again.
That's what I'm saying right now. You just got it from me, Maimo. That's why you're getting it now. It's still the slogan of the party. That's the premise on which it was created. And to come back to where I was, let's take the case of education. Today, the Constitution of Cameroon says that the president appoints at all civil and military posts. Okay? Meaning that in your village, it is the president via the Minister of Basic Education who appoints the primary school teacher. I don't even want to talk about nursery school.
Yeah.
Okay? The point is that the person making that appointment has never been to your village, doesn't even know the requirements of that village, and doesn't even know the person he's appointing. It makes it such that if you end up, let me say, principal of government secondary school, your village, and you start lobbying for an appointment, and you get that appointment to be principal of Lycée Bilingue, Babenda, they don't consider how performant you were there, as long as you do not have disciplinary files. So even if you have a 0 pass on GCO level, they entrust you now a whole bigger school where you even have A level as well, because there is no link between both. Because the people taking the decisions cannot come down there and control. It's just impossible. And the result is what you see on the field. And it can go to water, to roads, to electricity, to everything. And so what we are saying is that a federal dispensation gives all those competencies and money down to the ground. And in the case of education, there is absolutely no need today, in 2025, for anything else than the council to be competent in matter of basic and secondary education. There is no need. And if the schools do not work well, and they give you all the money for those schools to work, exactly the same money that was in Yaoundé to send over to those councils, they give it to the councils to make the councils work, those schools work. And if the schools in your council don't work, if the schools in Bali are better than the schools in Santa, everybody will see. And they will know that that mayor is a problem. And he needs to go, so that we'll correct it. Okay, so right now it is being done in Yaoundé, and nobody has access to that minister to come and complain that the school in Bali or in Santa isn't working. Nobody has access to him, and that's why things do not work. You understand?
Yes.
So it is important to understand what we mean, and so in a federal dispensation, everything is at the base, and with a principle of subsidiarity, what cannot be done at the council level is done at the regional level. Because every council cannot have a university, we would then agree in our constitution that higher education is handled by regions. It doesn't need to be handled by Yaoundé. And we'll start having vice chancellors. We should have chancellors in our universities, not vice chancellors. So we will therefore put the higher education in the hands of the regions, because they will have competence to that, and they can start competing with each other to attract more students, to have more diplomas, to have a better elite, and issues that need to be central, like the pedagogic inspection, like the GC board, like you name it, the school calendar, the school manuals and everything, that will remain in Yaoundé. You see? Yes. But the things that are supposed to be in the council area are now in Yaoundé. And that is why it doesn't work.
Everything is in Yaoundé.
And that is why it doesn't work. And that is the system we're fighting for. So to come back to your question,